Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 17 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. This week we are on the go home show to Lockdown. I'm really looking forward to that pay-per-view and everything we've got planned for that show, and hopefully, as it is designed to, we're back in the Impact Zone. This show can hype everybody up and hopefully people watching will be looking forward to Lockdown just as much as I am. And we begin with the arrival of Jeff Hardy. He will lead a team against Team Desmond Wolfe this Sunday at the pay-per-view, but in tonight's main event, he will go one-on-one with fellow captain Desmond Wolfe. The winner of that match will gain the man advantage for their team this Sunday inside the Lethal Lockdown. So setting up a big main event, and we continue to promote that match, as in contrast to Jeff Hardy, Desmond Wolfe is shown in the locker room. Hardy was alone, whereas Wolfe is surrounding himself with those members of Team Wolfe. He is speaking to Mr. Anderson and Eric Young. They're also joined by Rob Terry. Following their defeat last week, there's clearly some tension within the group. Rob Terry and EY were not on the same page during that main event, and Desmond Wolfe feels that is what cost them. He can't have that between any members of Team Wolfe at Lockdown, and tonight they have to stay on the same page to ensure that man advantage. Eric Young is still mad, and he's saying that it was all Rob Terry's fault, but Mr. Anderson puts him in his place. He also throws a little barb at Desmond Wolfe because he was actually the one who got pinned. Both Wolfe and Eric Young doing a masterful job of improvising. I think we had a segment involving these three that had the same result. Mr. Anderson, who you'd expect to be good at improvising, not really standing out in these segments, but we continue that build, as I said, to that main event. Speaking of matches, this Sunday we have the X Division Escape match. Kazarian defending his championship against 4 competitors, 2 of which were in action tonight. Austin Creed hasn't been set up as a credible threat recently, with good reason, because he's not getting the ratings that the likes of Amazing Red are getting, but in just under 10 minutes he gets a roll-up victory over Amazing Red, just trying to make people believe that he at least has a chance going into the X Division Championship match, even if he's not going to be the favourite to take the championship from Kazarian. After the match, we get a show of respect between Amazing Red and Creed in the ring, and Kazarian and Daniels come to the top of the ramp. While Kazarian is the X Division champion, Daniels does a little bit more of the talking. He's saying that at the end of Lockdown, both Kazarian and Daniels will be champions because he is going to be Abyss inside the 6 sides of steel. As Kazarian begins to give his part of the promo, he is cut off by Jay Lethal, who confronts the two men. He says that despite Abyss hitting him with a chokeslam last week, he still hopes the big man beats Daniels at Lockdown. As for Kazarian, Lethal wants to speak to him, but is attacked from behind by Homicide, laid out with a steel pipe. Homicide, the loose cannon, going crazy. He seems to go after Kazarian and Daniels too, but they manage to run away. They're obviously quite cowardly characters, we're putting them across as, that they'll avoid conflict wherever they can. They much prefer to run their mouth, cheat in matches, and get out there as quickly as possible. Homicide sort of is still running around. The loose cannon is an X factor in this match on Sunday, and he could walk out as the X Division champion, according to Taz, that is. Again, Homicide not really been pushed with any consistency throughout 2010. He picked up a win last week, but that was off the back of 2 defeats to D'Angelo De Niro. So again, the X Division hasn't been, or the guys in this X Division escape match haven't been pushed particularly strongly. I think Red we've done okay with. He's been a little bit 50-50 recently, but he's certainly had a strong start to the year, and Jay Lethal is somebody who we're trying to build a story with more than just having him win matches, and I think Lethal's the one of this sort of little group of X Division guys who has the most potential, and realistically probably has the best chance of taking Kazarian's championship at Lockdown, as we see him doing well improvising. Daniels, for the second time in 2 weeks, they're not improvising well without a script, something that I need to make a mental note of in future. Probably script his promos, which I think Daniels is a really good promo guy and comes off the cuff well, particularly when working with Kazarian. Their work as Bad Influence, I think I've mentioned before, I'm a big fan of. Almost felt like a precursor to some of the stuff the New Day did in the couple of years after. They were really entertaining, and that's something that we want to get more out of with them as we go forward with this pairing of Bad Influence. Kurt Angle is then interviewed by Jeremy Borash, and he promotes the fact that he will face Rob Terry later in tonight's show. Angle says he's had issues with Mr. Anderson for a while, and while he's got AJ Styles on Sunday, he does have that unfinished business. Every time he's tried to run into Mr. Anderson, Big Rob has been in the way. Tonight, he's going to take Rob Terry out of the equation and then turn his attention 100% to AJ Styles. He speaks on the main event of this Sunday's pay-per-view, but notes that while he's facing Big Rob Terry, the freak, the muscle-bound bodyguard of Mr. Anderson, it's interesting that AJ Styles is not in action tonight. But Jeremy Borash moves things away from that and promotes Kurt Angle versus Rob Terry later tonight and AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle in the main event of Lockdown. Into match 2, we get the beautiful people Angelina Love and Velvet Sky defeating Lacey Von Erich and Tara. Von Erich will be the gatekeeper on Sunday's Knockouts Championship match between Angelina Love and the champion Tara, but Angelina gets her clean pinfall victory over Lacey Von Erich. Tara's sort of taken out of the equation at this point, and it is Lacey Von Erich who is some levels below everybody else in the ring. Not too far off Velvet Sky, but the two best performers in the match are the two who will be in that championship match. Despite Angelina Love being off her game, the two did show great chemistry, and it's a promising sign. 260 ratings when they get into the pay-per-view. The added stakes of that with the championship on the line, I am expecting a really good match between them two. Lacey Von Erich will be at ringside, but judging on tonight, she's not going to be too much of a problem for Angelina Love. After the match, Love and Sky celebrate their victory, Love pinning Lacey, cleaning the ring as I mentioned. The beautiful people head up the ramp and stare down at the Knockouts champion who is checking on the gatekeeper. Tara really doesn't need Lacey Von Erich, but it's good to have that presence at ringside, and hopefully Lacey can stop Velvet Sky from cheating and getting involved in any way during that match. Not a great segment, unfortunately, just rated on the two winners' overness, losing heat to the storyline, which is disappointing. We go into the next segment, which again promotes a championship match at the pay-per-view. Generation Me shown preparing for their match later in the evening when they're approached by the former World Tag Team Champions Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. The Motor City Machine Guns come in peace and wish Nick and Matt good luck against Beer Money on Sunday. MCMG have the lethal lockdown match to focus on themselves, so they decided to offer their support tonight. Then they can focus on being on Team Hardy, but says that if both teams come out on the winning side on Sunday, they'd love to face them for the Tag Team Championships at Sacrifice. Nick and Matt seem very happy with this match in principle. Motor City Machine Guns v Generation Me, of course, they had matches in real life and that would be excellent. Despite the Motor City Machine Guns wanting to be the team to upend or take the championships from Beer Money themselves, they'll be happy to see anybody take Robert Roode and James Storm down a peg. So Sabin doing well, Shelley not so well, but not too bad between these two teams, and just setting up a potential future title match between two really exciting teams who, like I've said time and time again, will be cornerstones of this division going forward. Obviously Generation Me went on to have great careers outside of TNA, partially because they weren't used in TNA and everything that came from that. As far as this save is concerned and this alternate reality, Generation Me are very much in the forefront of my thinking for shaping this tag team division in the future. Just before Kurt Angle steps in the ring with Rob Terry, AJ Styles is interviewed and he's giving his response to what Jeremy Borash was told by Kurt Angle earlier. He said that he was more than happy to step in the ring tonight. It's not like he requested to have the night off, but he was told by Paul Heyman to save his anger, save his aggression for Sunday. Styles says that it's pretty clear that both champion and challenger are being played by Paul Heyman, but AJ's not getting involved in the mind games. He says that he'll be out to speak to Kurt Angle man to man after the match. He's not going to go tit for tat in interviews. However, unlike last week, there won't be sparks flying and fists being exchanged, because he has something important to say to the man who he defeated to become the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. We then get a quick video package following on from AJ's words, Mauro and Taz showing footage from that wild, chaotic brawl. We just want to put over how things have gotten a little bit personal between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. Again, I've said before, this is a face-v-face match, but the two have very different outlooks, very different approaches, and in fairness are being treated very differently by management. The idea is that Paul Heyman, like AJ Styles said there, is trying to get the most out of them. He thinks that by putting Kurt Angle in matches, giving him hurdles, giving him the feeling that he's being pushed away, that will bring the aggressive and the competitive edge out of Kurt Angle. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He is somebody who has fought all his career to prove himself to people, but he also feels that by giving AJ Styles a night off and making things easy for him is going to stick in the craw of AJ Styles just as much as the feeling that Kurt Angle is being treated badly. AJ Styles' identity is that he's this hard-working guy from Georgia and he's never been handed anything in his career. So when Kurt Angle suggests that that's exactly what's happening, he is being handed his place as the face of TNA, that's going to fire him up. And that is the underlying sort of story and the tension going into this main event at Lockdown, and hopefully it will bring the best out of the two men. That's the idea. Anyway, as Kurt Angle faces the injured Rob Terry, I said that I wasn't going to use him much and I was trying to stop him from being involved involved in a physical capacity as much, but I felt that this storyline needed closure before what happens on Lockdown and before what's going to happen with the storylines going forward. This was the only place I could really fit this match in, so unfortunately Rob Terry is going to have to work through the injury, and actually the finish is supposed to be that Rob Terry is going for a move from the top rope for some reason, maybe like a big superplex. His idea is that he wants to bring punishment to Kurt Angle. Instead, Kurt Angle slips out and hits an angle slam from the top rope, so probably not the wisest move to do for somebody with an injured coccyx, but we're doing it, so unlucky Rob Terry. Hopefully it doesn't appear to have aggravated his injury, so he should be fine. A decent match, not particularly good, and considering it's advancing the storyline, we would have hoped for better, but Kurt Angle picks up the victory in 10 minutes and 10 seconds, but he is not done there. His arm is being raised by the referee, and he is still fired up despite his win. Kurt Angle very much recently has a chip on his shoulder. He turns his attention back to Rob Terry and is not done with the big man. It's clear there's no love lost between the two. We remember a couple of weeks ago, Rob Terry laid Kurt Angle out with a spinebuster on the steel steps, so Kurt Angle has every reason to hate this guy. He violently wrenches on the ankle of Rob Terry, locking in an ankle lock to Mr. Anderson's bodyguard, and the motion that he makes appears to snap the ankle of Rob Terry. Funnily enough, we're giving him a storyline injury just as he recovers from his actual injury, and the Welsh Warrior rolls around in severe pain. We are putting over just how dangerous that move. Somebody as big and strong and tough as Rob Terry, absolutely in agony after being locked in a ankle lock from Kurt Angle, and we see that if that happens to AJ Styles on Sunday, he is going to have no choice but to tap out and give up the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. While his issues have been with Rob Terry and Mr. Anderson, the commentators suggest that this is just as much about sending that message to AJ Styles. The number one contender is ready to cause serious pain to anybody who steps inside the ring with him, and at Lockdown, that is going to be, as I said, our TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Coming back from the break, AJ Styles comes down to the ring and he's making it clear, a lot of green for this. A really good segment actually, in 84, considering it's a promo involving AJ Styles, who his entertainment skills aren't particularly high. This is a really good segment building to that huge pay-per-view main event, and he makes it clear he's now out to fight Kurt Angle, but he wants to talk. Angle is still fired up, but here's the champion out as AJ Styles promotes this Sunday's Lockdown main event. AJ Styles says that it's clear that the boss is trying to play both of them, but all that matters on Sunday is who walks out as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He says that this is the most prestigious championship in the world. Styles does try and turn attention or focus away from the incidents between the two recently, but Kurt's not really in a diplomatic mood. Kurt points out that he's just competed tonight, just like he completed last week to become the number one contender, and it's clear what's going on. TNA want AJ Styles fresh for the pay-per-view. This is what I mentioned in the pre-match video package, but we're going over it again here, and they want to paint Kurt Angle as this old timer struggling to keep up, the 40-year-old guy who can't keep up with this young and hungry and aggressive movement. Kurt says that he isn't being paranoid. The boss said it himself: if you're over 40, he will chop your head off. Well, Kurt Angle is over 40 and he is going nowhere. Paul Heyman can try whatever he wants, because if you're coming between Kurt Angle and the World Heavyweight Championship, then the Olympic gold medalist will break your freaking ankle. The two then go nose to nose, and AJ Styles is now just as fired up as Kurt Angle. He tells him off mic that this is the house that he built, and Kurt fires off again. He says that he only got TNA so far. Kurt Angle is the one who made the jump and put TNA on the map. TNA may be synonymous with AJ Styles for 7.5 years, but the TNA World Heavyweight Championship is synonymous with Kurt Angle. He was the first champion. He's held it for more days than anybody else, and of the 9 reigns this Sunday, Kurt Angle has the chance to become the 5-time champion. That is the definition of dominance, and he's going to continue that at Lockdown. AJ says that maybe he does, or maybe AJ is going to show that he is younger, he is hungrier, he is more fired up, and he is just plain better than Kurt Angle. He's going to do everybody a favour this Sunday and put Kurt's old ass out to pasture for good. So what started as a reasonable discussion between the two has very much degenerated. The two going nose to nose, not coming to blows or anything physically violent, but it is clear that these two men, who maybe even once considered each other as friends, are anything but that going into this Sunday's huge pay-per-view main event. Returning to the second hour of Impact, we see Jeff Hardy in the locker room, and he's with his Lockdown teammates, the Motor City Machine Guns and Hernandez. Matt Morgan is also in the room, remember, not confirmed as a member of the group, and Jeff actually tells him that unfortunately he isn't on the team. Hernandez looks shocked by this, a little bit betrayed you could say, but Jeff says that it's nothing personal and it's all about timing. Jeff reached out to 4 people when putting his team together on the first week, and this was before Matt Morgan returned, so he didn't really have the option of calling Matt Morgan. The 4th man got back to Jeff Hardy early this week. There is no spot for Matt Morgan in Team Jeff Hardy. Morgan is disappointed but accepts the decision. He says that no matter what, no matter who's on the team this Sunday, these got their backs and he wants to ensure that Team Jeff Hardy win. All that's important is stopping Desmond Wolfe, just like Jeff Hardy is going to do in tonight's main event. We then go into the 4th match of the evening, and it is Generation Me versus Kazuchika Okada and Roderick Strong. 4 people who I do want to keep strong, but it's only a decent match, a 58 rating. Good performances from everybody apart from Okada, who has barely any overness in the US, so it's something we've got to work on. And unfortunately, they are defeated, albeit by disqualification. We try and give a good match in the 7 minutes that they've got. The idea being that when Beer Money come out and attack Generation Me, causing the DQ, it's going to get heat on them because the fans were so disappointed because they were just getting into this high spots, fast-paced type match between Generation Me, Okada and Roderick Strong. 4 great competitors who I think could win round the Impact Zone very, very easily. And of course, Beer Money coming and spoiling it annoys everybody, and they continue laying into them after the match, hitting them with steel chairs, specifically targeting the legs of Nick and Matt Jackson. This of course will play into the story of the pay-per-view, the fact that Generation Me are such great high flyers. That is their tool that would possibly give them an edge over James Storm and Robert Roode in a steel cage match. They're taking that out of the equation. Roode and Storm also take out Strong and Okada, but the main focus of course is on trying to injure Generation Me. Like I've said a few times, Beer Money, popular group at this time, a very popular tag team, so we're really trying to make them absolutely detestable heels by their general actions, the way they've been to the Motor City Machine Guns, now using similar tactics on Generation Me. Mauro and Taz point out the fact that Generation Me were cut off just as they were finding their rhythm in that match. They were just getting into that gear where they would use all the exciting high-flying spots, and Taz again providing the analysis that targeting their legs is a smart move by the World Tag Team Champions, and probably they've got the edge now going into Lockdown. We then get a segment before Madison Rayne's match with Alyssa Flash. She's getting ready and she's approached by Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. Love says that for some reason she hasn't kicked Madison Rayne out of the group yet, and that's because she still believes in her. Love tells Rayne that she's been letting her feelings, her emotions get in the way of making the right decision, and Rayne now has a choice to make ahead of Lockdown. Angelina Love gives Madison Rayne an ultimatum. She must either show her loyalty to the beautiful people, or Angelina will banish her from the group permanently. Sunday is Madison Rayne's last chance to prove herself to Love and Sky. They then walk off, and Madison Rayne has something to think about going into her match, perhaps going to take her off her game, as we go into an interview with Matt Morgan conducted by Lauren Brooke, and he's just saying that he supports Jeff Hardy's decision because he just wants to see bullies like Desmond Wolfe put in their place. Whoever the 5th man is, he's sure that Team Hardy will get the job done at Lockdown. As Morgan continues, he is cut off by Kazarian and Daniels, and they mockingly suggest that it isn't safe for a big guy like Matt Morgan to be alone in this part of the building. They imply that something bad might happen to him if he doesn't find himself some backup. Morgan confronts Kazarian and Daniels about what they mean. He's sick of them going around like they own this locker room, but the two just laugh it off. Daniels says that if they want to know what happens to guys like you, ask Abyss. Kazarian adds, that's if he's conscious when you find him. The duo then walk off, leaving Matt Morgan wondering what has happened to Abyss and what this threat means for him. From Kazarian and Daniels, we'll find out in a segment after this match, with Madison Rayne losing to Alyssa Flash in 6 minutes and 26. It says Lacey Von Erich is at ringside there and confusedly on the wrong side of the face-heel divide. Lacey's not supposed to be at ringside, so we'll ignore that for now. A decent reaction, but subpar wrestling, albeit with a decent rating of 52, so I'm not sure that description quite matches up to how the match unfolded, but Flash wins with the vertebraker, and the commentators are putting over that Madison Rayne's concentration probably wasn't 100% on the match after that ultimatum that was made to her just before it. We then get Alyssa Flash stood tall in the ring, but While we once again reminded not to overlook her, the attention is on Madison Rayne, who appeared to be preoccupied throughout the contest. So again, we're pushing this idea that Alyssa Flash is kind of going under the radar. She's picking up decent wins and she's got a decent win-loss record in 2010. Nobody's really giving her the time of day. She's not being talked about as a potential Knockouts Championship contender. That will develop over the next few weeks. Cutting to the back, Jeremy Borash looks for an update on Abyss, who he has found in the back. He'd been laid out, and of course, Daniels and Kazarian seem to be claiming responsibility for that. Makes sense. Daniels is facing Abyss for the Global Championship at Lockdown, but Abyss is refusing any medical assistance from the TNA medical staff. He's lashing out, and they're fearing for their safety, so the medics just back up. They're not going to risk their own safety to help Abyss. Jeremy Borash also daren't go anywhere near the monster, but there is somebody else who will. The man who was chokeslammed by Abyss last week, Jay Lethal. He goes face to face with the global champion and says that he's been looking for him all week and now might be the best time to do it now that Abyss is wounded. Jay Lethal says that Abyss doesn't seem to like him for whatever reason, and that's fine, and Lethal showing a more serious side. He's straight to the point here with Abyss. He's not cowering, he's not afraid. He's saying that he doesn't like Abyss either. He expects confrontation, but Abyss just says nothing. Jay continues, saying that this Sunday, both of them have the opportunity to walk out of Lockdown as champions, and if they do, he's challenging Abyss to a champion v champion match. Before we see a response from Abyss, JB gets something in his ear. We're gonna have to cut away as there has been another incident elsewhere in the back. Lauren Brooke is on the scene and she finds Hernandez laid out, that warning from Daniels and Kazarian coming true, what appears to be a copycat of that attack. Matt Morgan is first on the scene with Lauren Brooke and he's checking on his tag team partner and best friend. Morgan asks if Brooke saw anything, but she didn't. Morgan feels certain that it was Kazarian and Daniels and he storms off to find the duo. His concern leaves Hernandez unattended as Lauren Brooke calls for help for Supermex. Morgan kind of neglecting his friend there, to be honest, in search of the vengeance that he desires from Daniels and Kazarian. Hernandez is of course going to get checked on by the medical team and should be okay for Lockdown, but perhaps some more concern would have been a little bit nice from Morgan there. Paul Heyman then comes out, as he always does for the last half hour of the show, to promote the upcoming Lockdown event. And while he does get a little bit of time to do that and focuses on the big matches, we actually get an interruption from Jimmy Jacobs, which is what the segment is really about. He is joined by the Knockouts Tag Team Champions Awesome Kong and Hamada, and he does his own little hype job promoting the fact that Awesome Kong and Hamada will be defending the Knockouts Tag Team titles in an open challenge match, despite the fact that it has not been mentioned on this show so far. Jacobs then speaks about broken promises, reminding Heyman that it was Paul who called him and not the other way around. Jimmy Jacobs was doing fine for himself. He wasn't looking for a job in TNA. Jimmy was contacted through their mutual friend Gabe because Paul Heyman wanted to speak to somebody who he knew had his finger on the pulse of the future of professional wrestling. Jimmy Jacobs was that man and he was happy to come on board with TNA, but there was a few agreements that Paul Heyman hasn't quite lived up to. Heyman sort of shrugs, he agrees, he accepts that things haven't necessarily gone to plan. This is almost a comment on the booking of Jimmy Jacobs and the New Age as much as the storyline reasoning, because we are trying to kick this into new gear, and I think that by confronting Paul Heyman, that's exactly what it's going to do. The champions didn't want to do their own interviews, they didn't want to get involved in all the backstage shenanigans, they didn't want to have to find challenges and things. So in return for Jimmy Jacobs doing the donkey work for the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, he became their representative. They joined the New Age. It was a symbiotic relationship that worked for both of them, and it started out so well, but nowadays he sees Paul's face on Impact more than Kong and Hamada. Hamada and Kong understandably aren't happy about this, and both he and Paul know that they deserve better. He issued this open challenge. Jimmy Jacobs says that he even went out and found the 2 sacrificial lambs to the slaughter for himself. They will face Kong and Hamada inside the 6 sides of steel, and he wants Paul Heyman to be watching very, very closely, because this is the night that will wake him, the locker room, and all of the fans inside the Impact Zone up to the fact that the New Age is coming and there is nothing anybody can do about it. Jimmy Jacobs then leads the Knockouts Tag Team Champions away, and it's clear that Paul Heyman has taken on board what Jacobs is saying. Like I said, this is probably the most important segment that Jacobs has been involved in, perhaps since the first couple of interviews. It's something that I don't necessarily think I put across well, why Awesome Kong and Hamada were working with Jimmy Jacobs. The idea was that they just wanted to focus on having the fights and having the matches, and Jacobs was willing to speak with management and negotiate their matches and do the interviews and all that sort of thing. So hopefully this gets across the fact that there is a benefit to Kong and Hamada. It's not just a case of Jimmy Jacobs leeching off the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, and hopefully we can move forward with the New Age. This is probably the best rated segment he's been involved in, a 61. Paul Heyman looking excellent, of course, the announcing helping the segment, but also Jimmy Jacobs more than holding his own, and I'm really happy with how that segment's come out, and again, a very, very strong advancement of the Welcome to the New Age storyline. Between that in-ring segment and the main event, we get an interview with Tara in the back. Just wanted to get her on the show and also break up those last two segments. She talks about her defeat earlier in the night, despite her not being pinned, and how that affects her going into lockdown. She says that tonight was about Lacey Von Erich and Angelina Love settling their personal differences, but at lockdown it is just about Tara and Angelina Love. They're going to be locked inside that steel cage, and Tara warns Lacey, Velvet, Madison, anybody in the Knockouts division for that matter, not to get involved. This isn't their fight. Whatever petty little squabbles they're having, that is left outside of the Six Sides of Steel. If it's left to just being Tara and Angelina Love one-on-one inside the Six Sides of Steel, then she is confident that she will walk out with the Knockouts Championship. So it's a decent promo from Tara. She's definitely the best part of the Knockouts division in terms of ratings, and I really like her as a figurehead of the division. It's one of the matches that I was pretty torn on. I've actually decided all the booking for Lockdown now. Both of them have a very, very strong claim to the Knockouts Championship, and I think that's going to be a really, really good match at the pay-per-view. Possibly the best Knockouts match that we've seen so far. Certainly that's what I expect anyway. There's a solid storyline behind it, and they've both been two of the strongest performers in the Knockouts division since the very start of this save. We then go into the main event, and it is Desmond Wolfe versus Jeff Hardy once again. It's a 79 rating, so a really good main event. Jeff Hardy doing very, very well. Desmond Wolfe okay as well. Desmond unfortunately off his game, so this match could have been even better. I think a main event in the 80s going into lockdown would have been really great and would have helped the overall show rating, but in fact it is Desmond Wolfe who picks up the victory in 13 minutes and 53. Both of these guys, I think now they've drawn one and both won one of the singles matches. Jeff Hardy did pin Desmond Wolfe, and I'll probably go more into it when we have the final blow off. We will look at how this storyline's unfolded from the very first show that we did. If you remember, Jeff Hardy had about a month and a half off, but the very first show we did, the post-match segment of the opening contest, Desmond Wolfe was taken out by Jeff Hardy. So this is a solid long-term storyline. It comes to a head at lockdown, but before then they were fighting for the man advantage, and Desmond Wolfe clearly had a plan laid out. Hernandez was attacked in the back. They already had a numbers advantage there, but EY and Mr. Anderson came out distracting the referee. This is while Jeff Hardy was setting up for a swanton bomb. Mr. Anderson was able to distract Jeff Hardy, Eric Young occupied the referee, and we confirmed the 4th and 5th members of Team Desmond Wolfe coming seemingly from out of nowhere. The Hooligans, Paul London and Brian Kendrick, push Jeff Hardy from the top rope. He crotches himself on the top rope. Wolfe is then able to hit the Jawbreaker Lariat, or the Tower of London would have worked just as well for this, but Desmond Wolfe picking up a pinfall victory over Jeff Hardy just 3 nights before the Lethal Lockdown match, and even more importantly, taking the man advantage into the Lethal Lockdown. It is timed entrances, so the first 2 entrances will come, but the third man in the match will be a member of Team Wolfe, and until all 10 men are in the ring, there will, for half of the match at least, be a huge advantage to Team Desmond Wolfe in terms of breaking down and beating down their opposition. Remember, once everybody is in the ring, that ceiling comes down and weapons are involved, so we're expecting a brutal match. All of Team Desmond Wolfe confirmed, but there is still one place on Jeff Hardy's team. Matt Morgan will not be the 5th man, and this final segment gives us the answers we are looking for. They are not content with just having the man advantage going into lockdown. The members of Team Wolfe realise there is just 72 hours left to go, and they can continue to lay into Jeff Hardy, perhaps taking out the opposition team captain before that big match. The attack continues. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin look to make the save for their captain, only to be taken down themselves. They're outnumbered 5-2. Hernandez was attacked earlier, so he can't get involved. Where Matt Morgan is, he went off looking for Daniels and Kazarian, so perhaps he's got involved in them, or there's some other reason that he's not there. The fight gets a little bit more even. Hardy and the Machine Guns are trying to fight against the numbers game, but every time they gain a little bit of momentum, they are tucked down just because there are so many members of Team Wolf at ringside. There is, however, one man capable of evening the odds, the final member of Team Hardy, the returning Samoa Joe. Mauro and Taz look to put over the Samoan submission machine as much as they can. We want this to be an impactful return. He's only been gone a month. We haven't seen him since Destination X. But the idea was that after losing that World Heavyweight Championship match, we didn't know what was next for Samoa Joe. Well, we have our answer now. He is on Team Jeff Hardy. Samoa Joe runs down to the ring, taking the fight to Team Desmond Wolf, switching the momentum. The momentum is now in the side of Team Jeff Hardy. He leads the charge in clearing the ring. Samoa Joe then stood tall, staring down Desmond Wolf and co, checking on his partners as Impact goes off the air. Hopefully a nice way to end that episode of Impact and to put a little bit of hype into the Lethal Lockdown. This is the go home show, and it ends with Samoa Joe back in the Impact Zone, and he is a member of Team Jeff Hardy. So it's a 65 rating for the go home show of Impact. It's not great. We would hope for better going into what is our biggest pay-per-view yet, but it's a really strong main event, and if you look through the whole show, it's quite a solid show overall. There's a few poor segments in there, but more or less a strong final build to the pay-per-view, increasing our popularity in 30 regions, so I can't complain too much, and hopefully when the ratings come out, this does do well. Of course, it'll be 6 days before we see how well this episode has done, given that it airs on week 2 April, Thursday week 2 April, and then the pay-per-view is just 3 nights after that episode airs. So yeah, that's the build to Lockdown done. We are completing an extension for Nick Jackson, who'll be staying longer. I'm not sure why his contract's up and not Matt Jackson, but things are going really, really well at the minute. I think I'm looking forward to that Lockdown pay-per-view. It's going to be a really good show. That's all I can say. Hopefully this go-home show has got people looking forward to that event. Again, I'm thinking it's going to beat out that 71 as our best event so far, just on the strength of the fact that, as you can see, our best match ever was AJ Styles v Kurt Angle. I think the storyline now has more heat than the storyline did then going into the Genesis main event. I'll double check what it is actually going into the pay-per-view. 78 so it is a bit down from last week, but hopefully we can have a decent segment on the pay-per-view that'll bring it right up. I've got everything already pre-booked for Lockdown, so hopefully this next episode should come out not without as much of a delay as we have had on previous episodes. I know it's been less than 1 episode a week recently, which I'm not happy with personally, but hopefully we can get to having at least 2 a week going forward, and hopefully this Lockdown pay-per-view can come pretty soon and be the start of a bit more momentum for this series going forward. Thanks for watching, and that next episode, I promise, is going to be one of our best shows yet. Hopefully the best episode we've done so far.